JavaScript is a language that is easy to learn and is popular among UI programmers. It has some flaws, but it is still a very popular language. Sometimes it is more important to be able to adapt and build complex systems that are more intelligent. The best programmers are those who create the most value for the people they serve. Being a servant to the user is your job when you're a developer. You should always be critically evaluating your work in order to produce the most value for the least amount of effort. Pay attention to actual users, don't invent fictional users. There is value to having a kind of wholeness of vision for a product. The leader should be at their limit of what they can comprehend of everything below them. Work-life balance is important for preventing burnout. Find what works for you and stick to it. Obsession can often lead to great things. Nutrition is important for keeping your energy up. AI can play a role in making debuggers more user-friendly and helping programmers understand code better. Good programmers will still make mistakes, and these tools can help catch them. Consider using a triple monitor setup, it can be a big productivity boost. If you're working with large collections of data, consider using a data structure with a limit on the number of elements it can hold to help you manage complexity. The company's first game, Wolfenstein 3D, was released in 1992 and was a huge success. ID Software went on to release a number of other highly successful games, including Doom, Quake, and Quake 2. Jay Wilbur was my primary editor and Tom Hall was a secondary editor. I wrote games for them and they eventually offered me a job. I met John Romero and Lane Roth at the company and they showed me how to do things that I didn't know how to do. I took the job and we started making games every month. However, these games were important in developing the skills that would eventually make the company famous. One of the most important aspects of game design is game feel, or how the game feels to play in the moment. This is something that ID Software learned through making a lot of small games. It was all DOS 16-bit. None of this was kind of DOS extenders and things. How different is it from the systems of today? Is it kind of a precursor that's similar? Very little. It was formative to my own development as a programmer. Scrolling was a game changer for video games, and PC games just didn't do that. So the EGA cards at the time had 256 kilobytes of memory. And it was awkwardly set up in this planar format, where instead of having 256 or 24 million colors, you had 16 colors, which is 4 bits. So you had 4-bit planes, 64K a piece. Of course, 64K is a nice round number for 16-bit addressing. So your graphics card had a 16-bit window that you could look at. And you could tell it to start the video scan out anywhere inside there. So there were a couple games that had taken this approach of you could make a 2x2 screen or a 1x4 screen. And you could do scrolling really easily like that. You could just lay it all out and just pan around there. But you just couldn't make it any bigger because that's all the memory that was there. This model was successful for Apogee and allowed them to make a lot of money. It was made by ID Software, and Tom Hall was the main designer. In particular, it could only scroll in one direction at a time, and it could only scroll fields of tiles that were all the same color. A later scrolling technology, which was used in some Super Nintendo games, allowed for smoother scrolling in any direction, and did not have the same limitations on tile colors. However, this technology was not compatible with all video cards, and on some cards it would cause a hitch in the scrolling. It is also about taking joy in other people's accomplishments. The game was also influenced by other games and movies that the team was familiar with. The change in perspective, from 2D to 3D, had a dramatic impact on the players and the way they reacted to the games. The Wolfenstein 3D engine was innovative for its time because it allowed for more immersive and realistic 3D gameplay than what had been seen before. It was also one of the first 3D engines to not use lives, which made it more fun and accessible for players. Ray casting is when you start off with your position in the world and you're going to just run along that angle and keep going until you hit a block. Compiled scalars is when you take a picture which is normally drawn directly on the screen and then if you have the ability to make it bigger or smaller, big chunky pixels or fizzly small drop sampled pixels. This allowed for the most acceleration when things were covering the screen. One of the most memorable challenges was the need to create new levels that were different from the original Wolfenstein levels. This allowed for the creation of thousands of Doom levels, some of which are still being created today. The line between simple and complex was in the graphics fidelity and the ability to add more programming capabilities to the game. They were first used in the Wolfenstein 3D video game, and later in Doom. They can be used to solve certain types of problems in computer graphics, but they can also cause problems if not used correctly. However, it is not the first true 3D game, as it is missing some key features that would later be introduced in true 3D games. However, the team bit off more than they could chew and the project was plagued with stress and delays. If ID could do it over again, they would have split the innovations into two separate games. Carmack reflects on how he coped with the stress of the Quake development and how he has never really gone to a very dark place. He also talks about the technical challenges he faced in developing the Quake engine, including networking and graphics. They were helped by Michael Abrash, who was a big inspiration to John Carmack. This means understanding the hardware, the low-level software, the high-level software, the design decisions, and the whole ecosystem around it. Smoke and mirrors can be used to create the illusion of progress and achieve goals that may otherwise be unattainable. Carmack admires Romero for his programming skills and for his ability to make things happen quickly. It is difficult to build, but it has the potential to change the world. It is possible that the metaverse will be built by starting with general-purpose capabilities, but it is more likely that it will be built by starting with amazing entertainment experiences and expanding from there. Instead, it was a combination of many different factors that all played a role in their development. However, there are still some challenges that need to be overcome in order to make VR more widely accessible and user-friendly. The current VR hardware is not good enough to replace Zoom completely, but it is getting better and Oculus is working on making it better. This may be because they become more conservative and risk-averse. Oculus has achieved a lot in terms of hardware, but the experience is still not quite there. They have debates and discussions about technology, particularly in the areas of aerospace and artificial intelligence. He thinks there is a less than 50% chance that humans will land on Mars by 2030. If something happens to him, the whole effort could collapse. Self-driving cars are a bet against almost the entire world, and I think they will happen sooner than people expect. Therefore, it is worth considering working on artificial general intelligence as a potential focus for one's career. One area that is particularly challenging is creating a system that can learn continuously and have long-term memory. AGI does not need to be embodied in the physical world in order to be effective. AGI will be enormously valuable once it is achieved, but it is not necessary to have robotic bodies or humanoid bodies in order to get there. AI will probably start off being very expensive, but the cost will decrease over time. AI systems can be more than just tools, they can be beings in their own right. To be a being, an AI system must be able to make its own decisions and walk away from interactions. And I don't know if you've tried to go get 1,000 GPU instance on a cloud anytime recently, but these are not things that you can just go spin up hundreds of. There are real challenges too. These things are going to take data centers and data centers take years to build. It's going to take a lot of people from different backgrounds working on it. He is also working on building up intuitions and sharing code or ideas or systems that give inklings of AGI, but also are useful to people in some way. He is also a martial artist, which has helped him become the person he is today. When another human being tells you that there is a hierarchy or that you're not that special, it is a good reminder that we are all mortal. He believes that we human beings are biological creatures that happenstance of evolution, and that we have innate drives that evolution crafted for survival and passing on of genetic codes. He has changed the world with his work in computer science and technology.